The Fed is a complete mess. What the heck is going on, Michael?
Yeah, I'm glad you opened that way because I really do. I think the Fed is a complete mess. What we saw. So what did we see, and then what should we have seen? So
Right.
what we were shown is the Fed voted 11-1 to cut by a quarter. Only the new member suggested we go by 50. Right. So in my opinion, the Fed wanted to show outwardly that they're in sync. They're at the hip with Powell. However, the dot plot is a complete disaster. There's actually one Fed president who thinks we should not cut but raise rates. Yes, folks, we have one Fed president that says we should raise rates. We have 6 Fed presidents that say we should cut 0. We have 9 Fed presidents that say we should cut 2 more. And we have one that says we should cut 5 more. The Fed is a complete disaster area. We got raised to 5 cuts. It's almost comical that they tried to fly by us that there was an 11-1 vote. Just comical.
I don't think anybody's talking about this in the headline news. Let's get into the show. So this is for Friday, September the 19th, 2025. Welcome to the Friday Financial Wrap-Up. Fed Day. Complete mess. Anything else, just kind of insights about the Fed and what is really going on, and why do you think it is that there's so much such a mess? Why?
So a couple of things. I do want to acknowledge, like I always do when I'm wrong. I was wrong, right? I'm the guy that was calling for 50, and I was calling for 50 right up until the morning. They only cut a quarter, so I like being authentic and real. I was wrong. I do think 50 was the right move. I think July was a mistake, and I think they should have cut in September. That said, I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. I was wrong. So there you go for that. For the haters out there that want to hear when I'm wrong, there you go.
One thing though, you said so July, you thought they should have cut in July?
Well, no. So what happened in July is we had a drastic reduction in the jobs numbers. Yep. So again, it's really weird. I went from being the guy that was like no cut
all year.
all year. Then July came out and we essentially whacked, I don't remember what it was, 300,000 jobs or something. We went from 150 to 17, which, oh, by the way, has been revised negative now. And that's, when you get new information, you're supposed to be intelligent and change your mind. So I went from no cuts to holy shit, the world's on fire. They got to cut 50. So that's how I went there. And they only cut a quarter. So again, I was wrong about no cuts and I was wrong about 50 for those that, want authenticity. However, I do stand by the fact that 50 would have been the right move because of the July mistake.
Okay.
But where the Fed is essentially sitting today is, in my opinion, they have firmly declared the job market priority number 1, right? Jerome Powell said something like the risk to the downside is elevated or something like that. Again, I think he's late. Inflation is proving to be not the boogeyman that the Fed has often thought, with more and more Fed presidents like Kashkari this morning saying that the tariff inflation is going to be less than they expected.
Yep.
GDP growth still below trend. I think the forecast is 1.6 or 1.8 or something like that. And I think there's a lot, as we'll go through the news cycle here, right? You got a lot of stuff to talk about. I think the underlying economy is not in a good spot. And I think the Fed is wrong. And then I guess the last thing I'll say, and I was really remiss to admit this because I've been studying the Fed for so long, but I think it's hard to argue that the Fed is not being political today. And maybe not the Fed in general, but Powell specifically. And some of that's, probably just being a human, right? Some big bully out there tries to punch you in the face, you're going to want to punch back. And, he's been raked over the coals and he's probably a little pissed off and a little annoyed and, all that stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, I think he's being political, right? Because again, if you watch what happened, the dot plot came out, the decision came out, and the 10-year note crashed. The 10-year note went below 4%.
Yeah.
And then a half hour later or 15 minutes later, when Jerome Powell got in front of the microphone, he came out as Mr. Super Hawk, Super Pterodactyl, and rates immediately reversed and they went up for the day and then they went up the next day.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's hard to argue that Powell's not being political at this point. And yeah, it seems to be pretty obvious to me.
Very interesting. So let's talk about, and the rates were trending down for
Yep.
feels like 3 weeks in a row,
Sure.
4 weeks in a row. I mean, felt like, 10-year mortgage was, it hit sub 4,
Yeah, it did
right?
for a minute. Yep.
For a minute. And which was kind of I think that was, that was significant. What do you think happens with mortgage rates? What are you seeing in mortgage rates now? And what do you make of it?
So I think a couple of things. Let's play this out. Let's play the whole timeline. So you're right. 2 to 3 weeks before the Fed meeting, the mortgage market was pricing in the cut already. That's what people got to realize, is the mortgage market's gonna react long before the Fed meets. So those people expecting rates to go down after a Fed rate cut need to go back to school. That's not how it works. It was priced in. The other thing that we were seeing is banks were getting more competitive. So the spread was coming in. It's not quite back to historical norms, but it is getting tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
And, that's being helpful for mortgage. And again, right, they come out, and basically what happened is the dot plot. So this is the initial press release. The Fed basically says, we are going to give you one more cut this year than we thought we would. So again, the market reacts almost instantly. So the market takes because I was actually recording a show when this happened with Matt, the mortgage guy. So you can watch our faces as I'm watching my phone and the 10-year note crash. The 10-year note goes from something like 4.06 before the release all the way to 3.992 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, the market is pricing in an extra cut this year. So that's why it went sub 4. And then Powell comes out and starts basically saying, well, this and that, and no, I don't think so. Inflation, blah, 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 and just talks it back up, right? So Powell tried to take back the extra rate cut. And, so that's where we are today. As we'll talk throughout this show, I think the trend is your friend. I think generally speaking, mortgage rates and the spread will continue to compress for the rest of the year. I think the economy is sick, and it's going to eventually become self-evident. And also, I think it's very clear that there's 2 more rate cuts coming. There's another one in October and probably another one in December. Even if the Fed wants to be political and only do a quarter, the rate cuts are coming, and that's where we are. I do not expect any drastic fall. I do not expect, 5.5 or anything crazy like that. But could we see sub 6 this year? Yes, we could. Not a lot below sub 6, but we could we could get below 6 just with compression in the spread.
Yeah.
Right. So we have lots of ways to get there. So that's generally my feeling.
So 599 feels really within reach. It's there within the quarter, and within this fourth quarter.
The year. Let's call it the year. Yeah.
The year. Okay. All right. Anything else? Just talking about like the rate cutting cycle and what the Fed does, or
well, I think you nailed it. Well, you just said the most important word, because going into this meeting, there was a possibility that it would have been a one and done. Right. Here's your cut. We're done. Data dependent. Wait and see. Yada yada yada. And I think what you said was the exact phrase. We have started a rate cutting cycle. So that's what I think. So a cycle has started. So multiple cuts.
Here we go, folks. Pay attention. Stay close to Michael Zuber. I'll tell you that. Let's talk about retail sales. What did you see this week in retail sales? How do you interpret the retail sales this week?
Man, the American consumer likes to spend. That's what I can tell you. And no true words have been said. Retail sales were above expectations. It should be noted, as we say most times, if retail sales are not adjusted for inflation, so they're nominal, not real. So some of the increase is inflation. But yeah, the retail consumers continue to spend. I did see an interesting stat, probably even an alarming stat. The top 10% of consumers are controlling something like 48% of the spending.
Wow.
That's a highest on record. So,
Wow.
people look at that and have nots, and I think that's the wrong question. I think if I was 21 or 22 again, the question I'd be asking myself is, how do I get in the top 10%? Right? We live in the best country in the world where you are not born into some point of life. You can
Right.
make your thing, right? I know plenty of self-made millionaires, multimillionaires, and decamillionaires, and a few hundred millionaires. And we all start from horrible positions. So again, I think there's lots of kind of negativity and doom out there, but I think you need to ask better questions.
Yeah.
And the question I'd ask myself at 22 is, if living good is the top 10%, how the hell do I get in the top 10%? That's, I think we need to ask better questions.
Amen. Amen. Asking better questions. So spot on. Let's talk about housing starts. What did you see this week with builders?
Housing starts are recessionary. There is no other word for it. We are actually completing more homes than we are starting. And if you don't know what that means, that's a huge red flag. Because if you're truly completing more home sales than you're starting, eventually that pipeline runs dry and you fire everybody. Now, of course, you never do that in building. You're always building something. But if this continues much longer, and it might, we will see huge layoffs. And again, it's really hard to say that because housing has been in a recession, maybe a depression for 3 years.
Right.
But if this continues, and again, it's not long. If this continues for 90 days, so 3 more months, you will see massive layoffs in builders. And if you don't know already, housing generally leads us in and out of recessions. So pay attention. This is an ugly number. Was an ugly number this week.
Didn't think that far through that what happens as things, and not only that, but also then the gaps in inventory, the gaps in housing, the gaps that we always talk about.
Yeah.
There's a housing shortage.
Yep.
So, how does this all play out? So very interesting. Let's talk about weekly jobless claims. What happened this week and what's your take on it?
Yeah, last week we talked about this, and hopefully people heard me. I was like, yeah, this is a dirty number. Yeah, it's ugly. I think it was like 261 or 263. It was above trend. It was the highest post or highest weekly number in like 2 years. But then I hit like comma. It was a short week because of Labor Day, and they make adjustments. So Let's not light our hair on fire. Let's see what happens next week. And this week we're right back to trend, 231. No big deal. We've been 220 to 230 for a year and a half, right on trend. So again, you could take that 261, throw it away as a weekly number that means nothing because it was a short week with it was just a short week, and all short weeks are dirty. So again, it was something to watch because it could have been the start of something, but now you throw it away.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. We obviously, thank you. You keep your eye on it all the time. So thank you. Let's talk about leading economic indicators. What are you seeing right now? How is the world unfolding?
Yeah, it's not really a report I generally look at, but as I get nervous about an economy or excited, right? It's one of those reports I look at for inflection points, right? What's going on in the economy? It's like, could we go lower from here or go higher? Because it really does it's one of those reports that tries to look forward as opposed to most of our reports being backwards. Like, what did we do? This one's like, what might we do? And the U.S. leading economic indicators are weak and getting weaker. I don't remember the exact number, but I think they were expecting negative 0.3 and we got negative 0.5. And we've been negative for, I think, 4 months in a row. And I think we've been negative 7 out of 8 months in a row, right? There was 1 month where we ticked up and came back. So again, no bueno, not good, man. And it's a bright yellow warning that the economy is not in a good spot.
Okay. So my follow-up question off the notes, recession. How do you see, like, so I know we talked about like Zandy was, some of the people, some of the, talking heads and some of the experts and economists on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. What do you see, Michael Zuber? Are we headed into a recession? Are we going to see a recession fourth quarter? Are we in a recession now, the third quarter of the year?
Dude, that's such a so I'll have to answer that two ways. The typical definition No, we're not. In fact, I think the forecast is for 3% GDP growth in
Yeah.
Q3.
Yeah.
It's hard to get there. But again, where I have stood for the last 2 years is I'm trying to get people to realize that this all or nothing recession, like the GFC, like the .com, like the pandemic, those are not the only types of recessions you can have.
Right.
And where I have stood on pretty firm ground and really been the only person is I think we are in a rolling recession.
Yeah.
And if that's your question, then yeah, I think we've been in a rolling recession for 18, maybe 24 months.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Now, the history books are going to say whether I'm right. They will not call this a rolling recession for probably 5 years, to which point it doesn't freaking matter.
Right.
But dude, I think we're in one now. I don't know how
Okay.
you could not look at what's going on and not say some things are good, some things are bad, some things are good, some things are bad. And that's the definition of a rolling recession.
Yeah. And so we may never even see, by true definition, 2 negative quarters of growth. That may not even happen in Q4 or Q1 in 2026, but in fact, that we'll look back historically on this and say, we're in a recession. It's just a rolling recession based on industries, based on shifts that are happening in the whole global economy is what you're saying. Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about the life-changing speech, man. Tell me, break it down, bring it.
Yeah. So I've been working on a speech because I was invited to speak at Bigger Pockets this year, a brand new speech that I've never given before. And luckily enough, I had 2 speaking engagements before Bigger Pockets. So I could try to perfect it, right? When you give a speech, you can only practice it alone so often. So I broke out the speech in Orlando last weekend, and the host was gracious enough to give it to me, and I put it up on my channel yesterday. It's 49 minutes. I think the title of the presentation or the video is Life-Changing Speech. That was my goal for the 150 hours I worked in this thing for 6 months, was to try to create something that is everything one rental at a time, everything everyday wealth builders, and try to make it actionable, try to make it humorous. And what the audience probably should realize is when you hear the audience reacting, you need to realize that the audience, 1,500 plus people in the room, so a big event, they were mainly Spanish speaking. So there was a translator kind of taking my broken English and translating it to Spanish. So sometimes there's a delay with the jokes. But it got the reactions, and it even got more of a reaction than I thought. And which is good, because again, if you're giving a speech to 1,500 and their native tongue is Spanish and mine is not, to see the reactions we got, I think was pretty good. So I would love to hear from the audience, my community, what they think. Again, the goal before slide 1 was created was to create a life-changing, all or nothing presentation, right? Take ownership, make decisions. You can do this, right? 1, 2, 3. And I want to hear from people. I do have another chance to deliver it with Thatch Nguyen, I think next weekend. Yeah. And then right after that, Bigger Pockets. So it's go time. So I am really passionate because I really haven't done a full kind of Mike Zuber change the world presentation in 4 or 5 years. So this was the first one I worked on in quite a bit. So I want to hear what the audience has to say. Again, 49 minutes, try to change your life. So let me know what you think.
I love it. And I know how you do things. I know you poured your heart and soul into this talk and to, again, life-changing. So I'm going to definitely listen to it several times over the weekend and over the next week. So thank you, Michael. Mm-hmm. Let's keep going and let's talk about Sunday. What are you doing Sunday with, by the way, the best $20 you as a listener or viewer can invest into yourself. The best $20 you can spend this weekend is to sign up for the school community, the one rental at a time school community. Michael, what are you doing this Sunday?
Yeah, so we're back to doing live streams, right? One of the things that I do every Sunday when I'm not traveling, right, with that exception, is I go live and I let people ask questions. I get asked almost every day, certainly 10 times a week, hey, can I get some time? Can I do this? Can I do that? And, the answer is join school. You want to ask me questions, I go live, and it's on the calendar, 8 a.m. on Sunday. And, everybody can come. I'll answer any and all questions. And, I look forward to doing that with the community. We missed the last couple of Sundays because one was Orlando, right? I was speaking on stage, and then Alaska before that. But yeah, it's something I thoroughly enjoy doing. So again, 8 a.m. Sunday, I will be going live, just me. So if you have any questions, I will be there. We did have our 9th accountability group pop off this Thursday. 5 p.m. is another accountability group. So you're losing out on excuses. There's now 9 to choose from. Thousands of dollars in education. It's a very active forum. It's if you want to become a everyday wealth builder, there is no better community to be in than the collection of nearly 500 people going the same direction. So get off your ass and get to work.
Get to school, folks.
Yeah.
And I want to share, just a couple of people asked me this. What is school? They didn't quite understand what it was. It's like Facebook.
Yeah.
Right. But it's very specific that it's like Facebook, where there's posting and questions and dialogues and comments. But unlike Facebook, all the negative, all the BS, all the ads, all of that, none of that is in the school community. So it's purely a community like Facebook groups, but it's all with like-minded, everyday wealth builders. Folks, it's the best $20 you can invest in yourself. It's the best $20 you'll spend this weekend. Michael, any other thoughts on school before we talk about Vegas?
No, I mean, just, again, I tried to do this with a private Facebook group, but what got me is I couldn't communicate with everybody, right?
Yeah.
There's not very often I do it, but when I want to do it, when I want to communicate with all 500, I couldn't do that. So school gives me that ability, but then it also adds a calendar feature. It adds, a library, of courses and stuff. It's, it costs me money to run the platform, but it's everything that I want. So shout out Alex Ramosi and the team over at school. They're giving me what I need to create a life-changing community. So it's pretty cool.
World-class, folks. It's a community without all the distractions and all the nonsense you see on other social media platforms. Let's talk about Vegas, man. I am excited. You heard me pre-roll telling my wife, hey, you got to come to Vegas this year. So talk about what's going to happen in Vegas. Talk about Vegas and tickets, and where are we at on all this?
Yeah, so I think we're up to about 145 tickets sold. The community showed up in August, right? We sold 135 tickets in August. I think we've only sold 9 or 10 tickets in September, which is interesting. Because again, if you buy in September, you get $100 to use as you will on my Teachable course. You can get stuff for free. You get $100 discount on my big course, which is only $399. You also can get a intimate call in October that will probably only be 4 or 5 people, right? Because the only people that can come to the October call are people who buy in September. So you want to talk about an intimate community. That's the one. And then the thing I did extra, because ticket slows have been slow in September, is every ticket bought, I'm going to reach out to you and mail you an autographed book, right? Either book, one or the other. I'll let you choose. And if you buy 2, which many people have, I'll send you both books. So, I'm doing everything I can to sell this out early and give as much away. And so again, go buy your tickets, get $100 to play with in Teachable, get some autographs, and, get a call in October. So buy your tickets.
Buy your tickets, folks. Vegas. It is going to be President's Day weekend. February, Las Vegas. You can go to Eventbrite and look up One Rental at a Time, Las Vegas event, and it is there. Michael, anything else you want to just share about like opportunities, focus for the community, maybe things that, we didn't cover today, that where people should be focused on?
I guess the last thing I'll say, and actually Mark, the financial firefighter, brought this up in our review of notes, and it really hit me after the conversation. So if you were on my channel and you looked at my analytics, I've had 2 videos produce over $1,000 in income, ad revenue. And both of them were with Melody Wright, right? Melody Wright, she and I disagree on what's going on in housing, but it's interesting for me to look at, because both videos were titled The Bloodbath in Housing. And it just goes to show you, if you want to make money on YouTube, produce negative crap. So again, a lot of these doomers are just porn creators making people scared, and that's not what I do, right? This 49-minute presentation that you'll hopefully all watch is about taking ownership, making choices, sacrifice, doing the work, and you too can get wealthy.
Yeah.
But it's mind blowing to me that you can create a video called Bloodbath in Housing, which never happened, by the way, and make $1,000. So it's obvious why all these doomers produce it. It's because they get paid.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. I just found that comical the more I think about it.
Folks, Michael puts, like, again, his heart and soul into this. Watch the video, the life-changing. Watch that 49 minute.
Yep.
49 minute presentation, Michael. It's up. You'll find it there on the channel, folks.
Yep.
Let Michael in the comments. Let him know you appreciate all the work he's doing. And more importantly, if you want to dialogue with him, talk buy box. Should I invest out of state? If I go out of state, where should I go? Should I stay in state? How do I buy my first deal? How do I buy my next deal, Michael? All of that you can do in the school community. This Sunday, he's live, just you and Michael and a small group of others. Michael, thank you for all that you do. Have a great weekend.
Take care, bud. Thanks.